As good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights, and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered, or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie, and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today is the owner of CMC Brand Management. He has worked in the print industry for over 20 years before deciding just to go out on his own. And he's no stranger to the corporate world, having worked for Diageo for more than 13 years. I'm delighted to welcome Conor McDonald to the You and Your Business studio. Hi, Conor.
Alec, good afternoon. How are you?
Fantastic. We have plenty to talk about, and we have a couple of things in common, print and all of that. So we'll talk about this. But anyway, as I said, I'll take you back to your last year in school. Were you the academic? Were you the person who wanted to travel? Did you want to get into the workforce and earn some money? What was going through your mind?
The last year of school, Alec, all I could think of was getting out of school.
Yeah, all right. I know that.
Not academic at all. Study was a word that I heard being thrown about, particularly by my mother and my father, but never really paid any attention to it. And went and did my leaving cert. I did not do very well at all, as you can imagine.
All right.
And having just turned 17 and not knowing what I wanted to do, I was dispatched back to do the leaving cert again.
Funny enough, that story resonates with me somewhat. All right, so you've done it a second time. I'm hoping you did a bit better the second time around.
No.
Okay, grand. So well, I think we've worked out something that studying is not for you. But what were you going to do then? I mean, if you weren't good at studying, where were you going to be dispatched to?
I had it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I got it into my head maybe by joining the Guards, that there might be a career there for me, until a chance meeting with my father and a friend of his from Guinness, who worked in sales, spoke about this thing called marketing.
Right.
Never heard the word. So I went into Guinness one day, awed by the size of Guinness. I mean, Guinness was like, certainly back in the 80s, was revered. And Michael Dunn, lovely man, introduced me to marketing.
Right.
And I got, I put my name down and got a position on the certificate course in the College of Marketing and Design in Parnell Square, where chapter 1 is now, actually, believe it or not.
Well, there we go. So from somebody who didn't want to study, you've just gone straight into college. All right, but at least you found something you want to do. How did that work out for
you? 4 brilliant years. I really thoroughly enjoyed every single year that I went there. I made great friends I still have to this day.
Right.
Initially, when I was doing the certificate, I threw myself into it because I actually loved it, particularly human behavior. So much so at the Christmas, they called me and said, "You're actually showing a flair for this. We're going to put you into the degree course." Oh, this is fantastic. My God, I've got recognition for some little bit of sense that I may have, or some bit of flair. So I did 4 years. And really, at the end of the day, when I did go into college, it was more so for my parents, believe it or not.
All right.
I wanted to give them something to shout about. Right. I had a couple of siblings before me that it didn't work out too well for the men. And I just wanted to give them something to shout about, to say that Conor did this. And at the end of it, when I went to see, did I pass, fail, or whatever on my final exams, and after finding out that I did pass, I was reminded by one of my friends, we've 2 conferrings. I said, right. What do you mean 2 conferrings? I said, it's diploma in advanced marketing techniques. And they said, yeah, but you also get a BSc in management from Trinity. I went, really? I didn't know that. I went, gee. Well, I ran home to my dad, proud as punch. I said, hey, Dad. I said, we've 2 conferences to go to. Firstly, to tell him that I passed with flying colours. And he was thrilled. And he said, "Oh, I look forward to the two conferrings." So much so, it made him the happiest man, I think, for a long time, because when I did receive my parchment in my caps, in the cap and robes, I looked down to the end of the hall and he stood up in his hand, waved up. And this was a very quiet man who kept to himself and didn't make any sort of emotional gestures like this at the best of times. I was so proud of Sponge for him that day.
Yeah. And it just shows you, two things kind of came together. One, your desire to please, but also finding a topic and the way it was presented to you. It got you immersed in it. So much so you didn't even know what you were doing, but you were able to do it to a level to get you.
It was unbelievable. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great. It really was great, actually.
All right. Okay. So now we have to finish with the studying. You have to go off and start making some money. So where are you likely to head off to?
For those who will remember the 80s, particularly the late 80s, it was very difficult times in this country. Interest rates they go on about 3.25% and 4%. Alec, you'll remember when they were 15, 16%.
I do, unfortunately. Go on, I do.
And jobs were very hard to come by. And a lot of my friends who were in college with me had to emigrate.
Right.
And when you left in those days, most of them didn't come back. They made life for themselves and made very happy lives, I would like to think. But it was very difficult to get a job. And for a year, I sort of scratched around, working here and working there just to pass time. I would send, and in those days, you wrote a letter.
Yes.
And you enclosed a copy of your CV, but you wrote a letter and hand wrote the envelope, and you got a stamp, licked it, and put it on the envelope to send it out. And I remember sending it out to, well over 100 companies.
Wow. Yeah.
And I might have got 2 replies. Both were, "Thank you very much for your interest, but unfortunately, at this time, we have nothing that suits your qualification, but we will keep your name on file," etc., etc., etc. I'm sure, Alec, you never got any of those letters.
I'm interviewing you, Conor, not me. I'd hate to talk about the rejection, dear. But at least in fairness, 2% of them did reply. I must say, in business, I always made it my business to reply to everybody who applied to us for a job, because I just felt so sorry for people who just didn't get one, and are not even told politely that they didn't get it.
It's very simple. It just makes the person, even though they don't get something, at least they feel worthwhile that they got a response.
That's it.
And they were given the manners to say, "Listen, thanks very much for applying, but not on this occasion."
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Conor McDonald. Okay, Conor's just left college and he's about to embark on the world of commercialism. So off to Diageo, or Guinness as it was in the day.
Absolutely. So they advertised in the mainstream press. Of course, there was only the mainstream press, through a consultancy, that they were looking for a trainee sales representatives for Guinness, as it was called then. And I applied, thinking that this is great, I'd love to get into Guinness. And I did the interview with the consultancy, and I was politely told at the end that I had failed and that I was not going to be in Guinness. But then somebody said to me, they said, "Listen, Conor, the Guinness guys are in college tomorrow. Go up there and put your name down and get yourself an interview with the guys who was going to be employing you." So I remembered the trio, and I sat down in front of them, and we had a conversation. And by the end of the conversation, they said, "You're going to be starting on May the 4th in 1987. Present yourself at the brewery at the front gate and ask for it." I couldn't believe it. Firstly, I was told I wasn't. And then with these guys. And for me, it was a lesson in that the consultants don't necessarily know everything.
No.
And if you can get to talk to the people who actually are going to employ you and work with you and do what they want you or the company to do, can be much more beneficial to that person.
It's true. And there's two things there. There's two very valuable lessons. Number one is you need to speak to the decision makers and not the people who put themselves forward, and not to be put off by people. Be more tenacious about it.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Good.
So
You
that
got
was
in.
my
You're in
beginning.
the door.
Yeah, I was in the door. And the first day I was in there, and they mentioned things to me like a pension.
Yeah.
I was going, it's a pension. I'd ask my dad, what's a pension, Dad?
Hmm.
And a bonus. What's a bonus? I was given keys to a car, free medical,
Yeah.
free gym, access to free beer. It was a lunch allowance, beer allowance. I came out of there after the first day, and I was the happiest boogle
Hmm.
in this country. I thought I was a millionaire. I couldn't believe what that had happened to me that day. I will never forget it. And I spent the next 2 or 3 years in Guinness, and I was so happy out.
Fantastic. Well, there it goes. It just shows you when the right culture's in the right place and the right people around you, how life can be so good. And they certainly always, espouse the right culture. But anyway, you were going to have different jobs working there, which would have given you experience across either handling people, working with people, customer service, a whole range of jobs.
Absolutely. You were all of what you just said there. You're a sales representative, you're a customer, your customer care, you were the customer relationship manager, you were the fountain of all knowledge in terms of beer. And you picked it up as you went along. And I learned from some of the best guys that ever walked or worked in Guinness. And they were the guys who were on the road 5 days a week in front of the customer. And they knew the customer and knew the product inside out, more so than anybody else in those organizations, simply because they were in front of the customer's face day in, day out.
And you got a very valuable piece of information from somebody there that was to stick with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, yes. I remember when I'd started first, we were brought out by each of the different reps, and they would introduce them to his clients, and they had a certain way of doing the business. And no two individuals were the same. And you had this propensity to be like Alec Drew or to be like Joe Soap. And I remember a conversation with one of the reps at the time, Tony Cavan, an outstanding individual. And he pulled the car over and he said, Conor, I'm going to give you one invaluable piece of advice. Always, always be yourself. Never try to be anybody but yourself. And he said, most people, everybody will respect you for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people you'll do very well with. Some will even become your friends, good friends. But there are some people who you will not get on with.
Right.
And that's the way it is for life, throughout life. There are people, there you will meet many people, and most of them will respect you, if not become good friends for who you are. And some of them, you just won't hit it off. And that's the way it goes.
And
But
I think
don't
there's
worry
a
about it.
valuable lesson there because we'll all come across them in business. It's for some reason or other, they don't like us, we don't like them. But that's not what it's about. It's about having a mutual respect and delivering on what you said you would.
100%. That's exactly it. It's exactly it. And if anybody is starting, I even say it to my own kids, particularly when the peer pressure is so great these days.
Yeah.
I simply turn around to them and say, be yourself.
Hmm.
And if your friends don't like it, they're not your friends.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's plenty of people out there to follow it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, you were having a fantastic time there, and you told me an interesting story about sometimes having to, I won't say bluff, but you have to take control of situations sometimes. And you needn't mention the pub or anything, but where there were some complaints about a problem.
Oh yeah. that was fantastic. That was. I wasn't too long in the brewery, maybe a year, maybe 18 months. And there's so much to learn in the beer business that you certainly won't learn it in the first year or two. It takes several years to get anywhere up to speed. But a particular publican on a particular street in Dublin
We can say Dorset Street. It's fine. There's loads of pubs on Dorset Street.
Okay, well, there's not anymore, believe it or not. And
Well,
those
there
days,
was back then.
there was 12 or 30. There was certainly more than 10.
Yeah.
Going all the way up to Drumcondra. But in this particular pub, back in the day, Alec, publicans made their money from the Guinness drinkers, because for every 2 pints that was poured, one was a pint of Guinness. Yeah. And the volumes were huge. And they would always have a core group of lads who'd come in, and they would have 8, 10, 12, 15 pints of Guinness a day. And that was the bread and butter for that particular publican. So this particular publican ran up one day, all in the flap, saying that his core group of lads, about 7 of them, were threatened to walk out because the Guinness wasn't good. And I was dispatched up to tell them otherwise. And I am going up here, and I am green, to say the least. I walked into the pub, and I went up to Mick. That's not his real name, but I said, "Hey, Mick, Connie says, great to see you. The lads here are telling me that the Guinness is not great." And I said, "Okay, what's the problem?" Oh, they said there's a taste of it. So I checked out all the equipment. I said, all your equipment seemed to be in perfect order, Mick. So I said, "Give me a pint there," and I put the money on the counter. And he gave me a pint, and I took it, and I drank it. I put it down. I smacked my lips like that, and then took another big mouthful. I said, "There's nothing about that, Mick, that's lovely." I said, "So I'll have a pint." I said, "Here, buy the lads a pint there as well. I'll buy the lads a pint." And of course, all the guys thought, "Oh, well, if it's the guy from Guinness, he knows what he's talking about. The pint is okay. He's grand." And so the 7 lads stayed there for the whole day, and that saved his business. And I just thought to myself, I walked out of there and I went, "Oh my God, how did I get away with that?" But as far as I was concerned, the Guinness was grand anyway. And it was just one of the leaders in the group thought, because he didn't like it, or his palate might have been off on that particular morning because he had eaten something, that there was a taste of the Guinness, and there wasn't anyway. But it was just unusual that they took the word of this kid who walked in because he was in Guinness, and as you correctly said, is defending your position and not bluffing your way out, but certainly giving a more balanced and true opinion of what the situation was.
And it's an important lesson there. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Conor McDonald. Okay, Conor, Guinness, we're talking about Grand Met, we're talking about Diageo, but you had another career in you that had been simmering under the lid there for some while, and you were about to embark on that. Tell our listeners about that decision-making process and how you got out to move out of one business into another, and then we'll talk finally about how you got out on your own.
At that point, when I'd finished, I was working. I actually was given an area of my own down in Waterford as a tech rep, which was super. And I worked both in the city and the countryside down there. But I always wanted to be in marketing because that's what I did in college.
Sure.
And I got a call one day to say, "Would you like to come up as an assistant brand manager for the Ales brand?" I said, "Be delighted." Got into the car, drove up to Dublin, and got myself into the marketing department. And I worked there for 13 years in various roles.
Wow.
And I learned so much about the business. It was like another college, to be honest with you, Alec.
Yeah.
It was a learning in life, but it was a learning in an industry that is so close to so many people in this country, because as you well know, whether you like it or not, the pub is the fabric of social life in this country. And I learned so much, but it was becoming a little bit tired for me after 13 years. I thought I was going to be the next Philip Kotler, who's one of the great marketing gurus of the time. Sure. And that didn't happen. I didn't make the grade, but I thoroughly enjoyed what I was doing at the time. And it was a decision I made to say, am I going to stay just at this level, or am I going to move out and do something else? And I had a chance to talk with a gentleman who owned a very small print company, who was looking to take on somebody with my experience, given what I had done in Guinness, and was I interested in joining it. And he told me what his plans were, and I thought to myself, let's have a crack at this.
Yeah.
And in 2001, I joined McGann's Print, then in Cork Street in Dublin 8.
And of course, they were at the forefront of technology. I mean, Mal at the time was more of a visionary in that sense, and it was a good place for you to be moving into.
Mal was 5 years ahead of the posse, minimum. He saw digital print and more digital print was going. Traditionally, you had lithographic and screen printing.
Yeah.
And
new kid on the block, and it was going to get better.
Say that again.
There was a new kid on the block, and that kid was going to be taking over.
Oh yes, he was so entrepreneurial, and he took on massive risks, Alec, over the years in the purchase of machines. Like, these machines are not 15, 60,000 euros. Yeah. These are hundreds of thousands of euros, and in some cases over €1 million, nearly €2 million. And there was nobody in Ireland going to do that. So much so that he became so well known in the industry internationally that the manufacturers of the digital print machines would come to Mal and ask him, what's the next step? What do you want? And it was this that put us to the forefront and led the way in terms of print, not only digital print, but printing in this country. And when I started, they were on less than $1 million a year. And when I finished, they were nearly on 15 million year turnover.
Well, I mean, there was a great lesson to be learned. You've got into a new industry, you've learned a lot there, but all the time in the background is, I need to get out on my own at some stage. So that was going to come to fruition. So tell our listeners about that, because we've about 5 or 6 minutes, and I'd like to spend that time just talking about that.
I always wanted to do something on my own. And the only thing that held me back, Alec, was fear. I had a young family, I had a mortgage, and I am risk averse. And it was eating away at me. And eventually I took the plunge and decided I wanted to do something on my own. And 18 months ago, I left McGann's and started my own business as what I'm doing right now, which is actually no different to what I was doing in McGann's. And that is working with clients and helping them with their print needs.
I mean, it's interesting to make that decision, because some people sort of live lives of quite desperation and will be on their deathbed saying, I should have taken the chance. So at least you've crossed that barrier. But based on what you're telling me, it was obviously a huge decision to make.
Some people actually thought I was mad, because, like, I'm fast approaching 60, and they were saying, hey, you're mad. You did a great job, and you had a salary. And I said, yeah, I know, but I just had to do it. But since I started the journey, Alec, I've met many great people who have all been very, very supportive. And I don't think really we understand, until you're actually out there in the world, how many people that are out there who are willing to give you a hand, whether that is a referral to a company who might want a business card, or to somebody who's saying, listen, let's work together and put a structure on your business that's going to propel you forward and make you successful. I don't think we understand how many people and organizations are so willing to help you in that respect. Now, I don't know what it's like for other countries, but in this country, it's been fabulous for me, from the local enterprise office, Leo, to the mentoring programs, to networking. It's been a great journey, Alec.
Yes, and I'm delighted you're saying that, because everybody has a business within them, but that barrier of potentially losing that set income coming in weekly or monthly, whatever it is, puts real fear into them.
It does. And I'm not going to say for a second that it's been a massive success. It's been successful. I'm still nowhere near what I was earning when I was working in a comfortable position like that. But I'm getting there.
Sure.
But the satisfaction of working for yourself and following your dream is massive. It really is. And Alec, I take a pragmatic approach to it, in that if it works, and happy days, and I'll enjoy it.
Sure.
And for whatever reason or reasons it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Not the end of
No,
it. And as you get older
mm,
in time and in life, you'll understand that a good bit more.
no, it's true. It is true. But your sort of destiny is within your own hands. So if things are not going right, the important thing is to understand it early and to start correcting it.
Absolutely. And at this moment of time, I'm 14 months into it. I
Okay.
said I'd give it a year. I'm now going to give it another year.
Sure.
And um, with a bit of luck and a bit of help, and I get great help from individuals, that this will see me through out my days. And if it does, I'll be the happiest man alive.
Well, the good news is you're bringing a lot of skills, and the sales and marketing are one side of it, but I think also a key part of any entrepreneur setting up is the ability to network and understand the value of networking.
It is really, it's so true. Alec, we all say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Sure.
And in Ireland, that could not be more true. We are a tiny nation, and everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And the idea of networking initially to me filled me with fear, thinking,
Mm.
have I to go out and cold call and say, will you give me your print business? And I'd love to. And I was going, oh my God. But you're brought into this networking world, and it's anything but. It's all about building trust
Yeah.
and your integrity and honesty. And if you have those three traits with whomever you're working with to look for business, it's very hard to go wrong, because that's all people want any day, all day long, is somebody who they can trust, somebody who is honest, and somebody who knows who are going to look after them.
Great. Well, that's a great way to finish the show. Just finally tell people where they can find out more about you, Conor.
Thanks, Alex. So it's CMC Brand Management .ie on the web. I'm also on LinkedIn, the same CMC Brand Management, or Conor McDonald,
Correct.
or by email, and it's Conor@brandmanagement.ie.
Fantastic. What a great way to finish the show. Thanks from my guest today, Conor McDonald, for coming into the You and Your Business studio. Thanks also to Sam and Sound, and the podcast of the day show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company, and please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 1 o'clock, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.